Right, I think I'm online now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on what are sustainable development goals and how to use them in your research. My name is Dino Venturino, and I am the Elsevier ebook solutions manager for Africa. And I am responsible for everything to do with ebooks from Cape Town to Cairo and everything in between. I'll be hosting this Sustainable Development Goals webinar today in partnership with the University of Johannesburg, and I'm positive that you will find the topic very interesting indeed. If you have any questions for the speakers, please post them in the Q&A window, and we will go through them at the end of the presentation. We will also be sharing a link at the end of this webinar to our Researcher Academy so that you can download your certificate of attendance. And please note that we will be recording this webinar, and we will be sharing and sending the link to each of you along with the link to the SDG presentation. So without further ado, let me introduce the talkers for today, or the speakers rather. The first is Katie Hammond, who is the Senior Acquisitions Editor for Energy Reference Books at Elsevier. She has more than 16 years of experience in print and digital publishing, focused solely in energy engineering. Katie graduated from Texas A&M University with an undergraduate degree in English and currently resides in Texas with her husband Joe and two daughters, Mary and Clara. Our second speaker is Anne Valutkovich, who is the Acquisitions Editor for Animal Science, Organismal and Evolutionary Biology Research Reference Books at Elsevier.
See it?
Now
there you go.
Perfect.
There you
Excellent.
go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
All right. Sorry about that, Katie. Go ahead.
That's okay. No worries. So hi, everybody. And like I said, howdy from Texas. I'm delighted to be speaking to you this afternoon. And like Dina said, my name is Katie Hammond. Uh-oh. There you go. I'm the Senior Acquisitions Editor in Energy References at Elsevier, and we're going to kick off the agenda, like Anna said, with what is an SDG? So in 2015, the United Nations, along with 193 states, signed an agreement called the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And this plan identified 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, linked to 169 targets to deliver by 2030. And these targets are calls to action by all countries to stimulate action in areas of critical importance to humanity and the environment. And you can see each of the 17 on the screen, and we're going to zoom in on 3 of these during the case study portion of the conversation. Those will be SDG 7 for affordable and clean energy, 11 for sustainable cities and communities, and 12 responsible consumption and production. It is worth noting that many of these SDGs go hand in hand with each other to improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change. The UN has identified the years 2020 to 2030 as the decade of action. So while progress has been made to the 2030 targets, it's not happening at the speed or scale necessary to achieve them by 2030. So in September of 2019, the UN Secretary General called on all sectors of society to mobilize for a decade of action on 3 levels, and you see that on the slide as well. The first is global, to secure resources and smarter solutions. The second is local action, embedding transitions in policies, budgets, and frameworks for governments and local authorities. And then the third is people action, and this includes youth, private sectors, and academia, such as the University of Johannesburg, to generate movement and pushing for change. And this change obviously can happen through advancing your research. Next slide, please. So some of you may have seen this slide, but if you haven't, you can see that the University of Johannesburg is already doing some pretty fantastic work advancing research within many of the SDGs. This slide, for those that haven't seen it, it was compiled by our platform Cybele and Scopus, and the list of SDGs are ranked by the amount of publication output from the University of Johannesburg, and that's in the teal column. And you can see the yellow column, field weighted citation, is high in many categories. Anything over a 1.0 is considered highly cited work. And the reddish column displays where University of Johannesburg ranks in comparison to other universities in South Africa. You'll notice that SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, is a #1 global ranking for the university. Today, like I said, we're going to focus a little more attention on how Elsevier and the University of Johannesburg aligns in SDGs 7, 11, and 12 as examples. You'll notice in the slide that the university is ranked either number 1 or number 2 in these 3 respectively. Next slide, please. Elsevier's parent company, RELX, is a signatory on the UN Global Compact, which uses the SDGs to chart business participation in achieving these aims. With over 1.4 million scholarly papers related to SDGs published during the years of 2015 to 19, researchers are quite overwhelmed with a massive amount of content and data. And at Elsevier, we take our unique insights in content, data, and analytics with our research community to help navigate the sea of information. And these snapshots are just 3 examples that are all freely accessible. On the left is our RELX SDG Resource Center, which hosts the latest science, law, business, and events, drawing on content from across the company and key partners, bringing awareness and understanding of the SDGs to our customers, the researchers, and governments. And in the middle is our Sdg Graphics, which we started releasing in late 2020, that show key metrics for research output, collaboration, and impact per SDG. On the right is our Sustainability Science Hub, which hosts analytical reports to better understand sustainability science, examines scholarly impact and collaboration, and tools to help you make evidence-based interventions and fuel innovation. Links to all these tools are going to be available on the final slide of this presentation, so you can check them out. Next slide, please. There we go. We also offer, like Dina mentioned, the Elsevier Research Academy, which provides free access to countless e-learning resources designed to support your research journey. One area that we wanted to highlight today is a section devoted to advancing sustainable development goals. Topics include how to make your research gender balanced, as well as how to protect the environment while continuing your work. And after our presentation, like Dina said, you'll have the opportunity to download a certificate for attending, and the link is included on the slide. Next slide, please. So you can see from this slide, Elsevier is publishing in a variety of SDG areas, and to date, we have over 745 books related to sustainability or keywords that tie to a particular SDG. And these are organized into 20 different Science Direct subject collections, such as energy, engineering, and food science. Next slide, please. So we've talked about how the University of Johannesburg is advancing SDGs, and we've talked about how Elsevier is advancing the SDGs in their respective areas. Now let's bridge the two and showcase a few examples of how the two together create successful SDG advancements. The first we'll look at is the agricultural waste diversity and sustainability issues with Peter and Charles. Second will be nanomaterials for solar cell applications with Samuel and El Haji. And last is sustainable manufacturing with Kapil Gupta. And what we'll do is we'll walk through how each book came into being, how the authors and Elsevier editor partnered together, and then helped develop the SDG research into the book's synthesized format. Next slide, please. So within Elsevier's food science and agricultural publishing program, we address multiple SDGs already, including SDG 2, Zero Hunger, and SDG 12, Responsible Consumption and Production. So these are target topics for us to advance SDGs in our publishing program already. We were very pleased when Dr. Anu and Professor Maboa proactively contacted Elsevier through our online proposal submission portal, downloaded our available proposal form there, and completed it with a description of their project that you see here, Agricultural Waste Diversity and Sustainability Issues. As part of their proposal, Peter and Charles indicated keywords representing their planned content, such as sustainability, agricultural, and waste. The Elsevier acquisition editor took Peter and Charles's keywords and proposal information into SciVal for assessment, and the outcome is what you see in the blue bar graph and key term map, indicating that not only is agricultural waste and related categories growing in research output, but the rate of growth is quite rapid at a CAGR of 21%, which is quite high, as well as a field-weighted citation impact of 1.50. The editor also notes the alignment of the subject area with our prominent journal counterparts. All of these bibliometric measures exceeded the averages for our overall program, indicating a strong audience potential. So we saw on the previous slide of the SDG rankings that the University of Johannesburg ranked #1 in South Africa for SDG 12. So after seeing this full data picture, the evidence became very clear to partner on the project. So published in January of this year, Agricultural Waste Diversity and Sustainability Issues presents solutions for overcoming limitations guiding developmental processes, and improving knowledge transfer in agricultural waste management and development. Sections cover methods in waste preparation and processes and the best practices, associated technologies, accountability, communications, and involvement surrounding diverse stakeholders. Aligning well with our SDG pursuits, Peter and Charles's work offers real-world insights that our audiences appreciate and inspires additional research and greater understanding of the state-of-the-art approach for effective biodegradable waste management. Next slide, please. So in this case study, we're going to look at SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, and how data was used to inform and guide the partnership. Over the last 2 decades, there has been a great deal of research being undertaken on the use of nanostructured materials for solar cell applications, primarily driven by the need for high efficiency and cost-effective materials within the renewable energy field. These efforts have been focused on metal oxide-based solar cells, quantum dot synthesized solar cells, and polymer nanocomposite solar cells, as well as nanocarbon-based materials such as graphene, graphene derivatives, and carbon nanotubes. Within the subject of nanomaterials and solar cell applications, we see in the blue bar graph again in the upper right that there has been an output of 5,400 journal articles related to those particular topics, a field-weighted citation impact of 1.73, and a growth of over 15% in output over this time frame. So just like in our previous example, the bibliometric data strongly suggested that there would be a strong audience potential. So enter Samuel and El Hadji from the University of Johannesburg, who joined 3 other editors to form a team to recruit a diverse group of chapter contributors from throughout the world in order to ensure a global perspective on the topic. And in summer of 2019, Nanomaterials for Solar Cell Applications was published, discussing the synthesis, characterization, and application of traditional and new material, including coverage of emerging nanomaterials such as graphene and graphene derivatives. This timely publication helps support our mission also of combating carbon emissions within the energy sector. Next slide, please. So we're going to shift now to SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. Within the mechanical engineering disciplines, manufacturing engineering has emerged in the last 10 years as a key focus of research funding. Alongside interest from research funding bodies in the external manufacturing industry, there has also been a transition towards sustainability, and that's driven mostly by consumer attitudes and corporate positioning. In a recent article published by Harvard Business School, the number of green patents filed between 2008 to 2017 were predominantly in manufacturing. The second highest number of patents was in the energy sector. This trend, as you can see, has impacted on academic output in sustainable manufacturing with a 15% growth between 2015 and 2019, shown again in the blue bar graph, and a field-weighted citation impact of 1.64. The bibliometrics shown here create a high demand for details of industrial advances within academia and a drive to adopt relevant sustainability research within the manufacturing industry, making a book on the subject an ideal product to transmit information in this way. So Dr. Kapil Gupta and his co-editor were ideal candidates for this project. They actually were already well known to Elsevier as editors of successful books on manufacturing engineering, with extensive global networks connecting contributors in academia and industry. And so published in March of 2021, so fresh off the press, Sustainable Manufacturing advises readers on how to achieve sustainable manufacturing processes and systems, presenting strategies and techniques to achieve sustainability in numerous areas of manufacturing, such as environmentally benign machining, sustainable additive manufacturing, remanufacturing and recycling, and sustainable supply chains. Dr. Gupta and his co-editor built an all-inclusive list of contributors from both, like I said, academic and corporate backgrounds, bringing a well-balanced global view to the subject. Next slide, please. So now we've seen how well partnerships between the University of Johannesburg and Elsevier can create impactful, synthesized knowledge to meet a global SDG need. But don't take my word for it. Take it from one of our authors, Kapil, who provided this sincere quote about his experience working with Elsevier. At Elsevier, we always strive to delight all of our authors in helping you advance your research and ultimately advance society. Next slide, please. So in this decade of action, and given the tremendously challenging global circumstances our world still faces during a pandemic, our goal is to partner with you and help you meet your research demands, ensuring productivity so that the University of Johannesburg can continue to excel. So how will we do this? My colleague Anna will now discuss how Elsevier and the University of Johannesburg can advance our SDG partnership. So over to you, Anna.
Thanks so much, Katie. As I'm happy to provide you with an overview of how we publish our books here at Elsevier and what you can expect from us when you begin to collaborate publishing your SDG content with us. So we work with our journals colleagues to provide reliable, timely, and advancing resources that meet the needs and desires of our readers. You can see from this slide that our book products combine the power of facts and baseline knowledge with the latest research, case studies, and applications. Our end goal is to ensure that readers get up to speed and stay up to date with our book products. For you as the author or editor, there are many reasons to write a book, ranging from an uncharted topic or area to sharing your life's research with others around the world. As we look to expand the output of sustainable development content from the University of Johannesburg, we encourage you to consider the SDG goals that Katie went over, especially those in need of further coverage, as you think about what type of book to publish with us. We have a few different options for approaching the creation of a book here at Elsevier. Leading a project could be done as an editor, wherein you would collaborate with a team of trusted and respected authors. This is represented in our volume editor description here. As an author, you maintain full control of the written content, either by yourself or with co-authors. There is also an option to contribute a chapter to one of our books, led by a volume editor. And this will be cited and indexed to ensure full accreditation to you and enhancing your research output. A bit about how we work to identify and pursue content. Our goal in terms of enhancing SDG content is to assess user needs and existing coverage to ensure that we are offering the latest research and data on how to navigate challenging global circumstances. We pull these assessments from a combination of bibliometric tools that you see identified in the left-hand box, such as Scopus, SciVal, ScienceDirect. It is also vital that we use these tools to assess reader priorities, identify trending topics, spot content gaps, and research global funding for organizations, causes, and developments. In addition to analyzing this data, one of the most important parts of our role in the publishing industry is to listen to what our customers want. From interdisciplinary and trusted content to quick and comprehensive presentations with easy to understand features, we work with you as the authors and editors to create SDG book products that fulfill the needs of these readers. So what can you expect from our publication process? This illustration that you see here provides a perfect visual of how we begin by using our aforementioned publishing strategy to pursue and discuss timely SDG book topics with prospective authors or editors. Once the project leader has submitted a book proposal to us, we will assess and advise the author or editor to ensure that the proposal plan fits the market and customer needs. From there, we send the proposal for a necessary external peer review. This is to gauge wider market need for the book content and receive other experts' advice on what could be expanded or revised to make the best possible final product. We then share this feedback with the author or editor and, as needed, work with them to revise the proposal's elements based on the reviewer's advice. Elsevier then approves and contracts the project with you, assists the project leader with the development of the manuscript, and process the final manuscript with our world-class production team. After publication, we collaborate with our authors and editors to maximize international awareness of this published product. We encourage you to visit this link provided in the slide to learn even more about the subject areas and what our proposal forms require for preliminary project information. Once you have your book idea on paper, we recommend that you either submit this proposal to our proposal mailbox at the direct email address here, and from there our handling team will identify the ideal acquisitions editor based on your book's topic and connect you with him or her for further discussions. All right. Now we'll go into how we develop the manuscript here at Elsevier with you. So while the acquisitions editor will continue to be active throughout the publication process for your book, you'll also be assigned an editorial project manager for any day-to-day queries, chapter, author relations, and the submission of your final manuscript. A copyrights coordinator will also be assigned to assist with any permissions. For example, if you would like to use an image in your book that you found online, the copyrights coordinator can advise you on any required clearance. For edited and authored works, we provide you with clear and detailed guidelines and will advise you on these mentioned manuscript elements here to deliver and maximize the appeal of your book to end customers. Once the final manuscript has been submitted, a production manager, will take over to provide you with a schedule and coordinate copy editing, proofreading, indexing, manufacturing. Our publication timeline ranges between 4 and 7 months, depending on the length of your book and the complexity. And the production manager will ensure to advise you on this timeline when he or she receives and assesses the manuscript. Due to immediate availability of the files, ebooks will be ready first, followed shortly thereafter by the print version of your book. We offer both formats to customers on our Elsevier bookstore, third-party sellers like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, as well as brick-and-mortar distributors. After publication, your book's content will be indexed for SciVal, Scopus, and Science Direct. I'll now hand it back over to Katie for a brief description of how we use topic pages to enhance the citation impact of your book.
There we go. Thanks, Anna. So Elsevier has many solutions and channels to showcase your content, and one in particular that we wanted to highlight is our Science Direct topic pages. Our customers encounter unknown terms and concepts during their careers, and we know that the path of literature searching can be time-consuming. So this is why we created Science Direct Topics. These are free topic pages that provide customers with a comprehensive database of reliable background and contextual knowledge so that they can get up to speed with new and unfamiliar concepts. It's a discovery tool generated using innovative and automated technology from information extraction. So our AI techniques take published content and they surface the most relevant snippets of information from our books and journal articles into summarized pages, and they are discoverable through search engines. In the slide is an example from our first case study, Agricultural Waste Diversity and Sustainability Issues with Peter and Charles. So I went into Google and I typed agricultural waste, and our topic page on the subject was on the first page of search results. When I click on our topic page on the subject, I get a basic definition under the word, related key terms to other related topic pages, and then snippets of that high quality relevant content. And then one of the top snippets that you see in the orange box is from Peter and Charles's chapter on waste management. And so an abstract about the chapter is listed, and I can click on the link and I'm taken to the book's information in our digital platform, Science Direct. Our topic pages provide a robust starting point for advancing your SDG research through search engine optimization. It enhances that bridge between books and journals content that Anna talked about earlier, and most importantly, brings other researchers in touch with your important and relevant SDG contributions for future collaboration. And so I'm going to send it back to my colleague Anna for a final wrap up.
Thanks so much, Katie. So we are honored to work with a platform like Science Direct that offers the most trusted, robust, and current information to enhance our representation, of SDGs. As demonstrated by the statistics here, there is simply no other platform that provides such seamless and integrated access to relevant and high quality content while ensuring discoverability and accessibility of your book. It's a winning platform that sets Elsevier apart from other publishers. By publishing your SDG content with us, each chapter will be available directly to readers with institutional or private access to Science Direct, enhancing the range and usability of your hard work to assist the world in further expanding upon these SDGs. It has been a pleasure to speak with you today to tie together how Elsevier and the University of Johannesburg can continue to collaborate to create a more sustainable, healthy, and thriving world. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. We encourage you to reach out to us directly here via email, but we have also allotted some time here for any questions. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to anyone who would like to raise a question with us. And I believe, Dino, let me know if there are any questions coming to you directly.
Yes, I will do. Thank you so much, Anne and Katie, for your great presentation on SDGs there. I have a few questions that I'd like to ask on behalf of the audience. If I see that there's Batsiba Sepeng, do you have a question you'd like to ask? I just see that your hand is raised. If you wouldn't mind typing it in the questions block, questions and answers, I will ask these other ones in the meantime. So one of the questions, this seems to be a regular that comes up, is what is the difference between publishing an ebook and a journal, and what choice should one make when the time comes? How do you make that decision? I'll hand it back to you, whichever one of you two would like to.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So journals and books are very different animals, so to speak. Journals are much more piecemeal, one-time publications about a very specified topic. It falls under different guidelines that Elsevier has, including multiple rounds of peer reviews, working with the editor, and editor-in-chief of the journal publication. Publishing an ebook with us is a form of publishing a book. As I mentioned, all of our books are published concurrently as electronic books and as print books. So it's really up to you if you want to just publish a one-time journal, or if you want to expand upon that into a book product. All of them will be available on Science Direct, either as journal articles or book chapters. As I mentioned, all of the book chapters will be broken out separately into different individual available downloads. So somebody can go on Science Direct and access your book chapter just like they would a journal article. So it works in kind of the same way in the end result, but the actual process and format is very different. Yeah, hope that answers that.
Yeah, thank you. And then just a lead on from that, is Elsevier specifically looking for authors writing in line with SDGs? Is that an upward trend?
Yes, yes, certainly.
Okay, and are there specific SDGs that are being published, or should a user, an author, a researcher approach you with any one of the SDGs out of the 17?
We're encouraging all of the SDGs, specifically the ones that Katie highlighted earlier in our presentation. Those are the ones we are looking to enhance, but we are always looking for sustainable content out of any of the SDGs listed. So that is a great example of if you put forth a proposal that falls within one of those SDGs, send it to our author mailbox. Then they can advise on which topic or which acquisitions area will be best suited. And then discussions can go from there on how to enhance that content. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. A lot of like I said earlier, a lot of the SDGs go hand in hand with each other. So a lot of them can support other SDGs. So don't feel like you have to be pigeonholed into one, you have to just go for one. one topic can represent multiple SDGs or support multiple SDGs. And I agree with Anna that we're looking to enhance across the board. This has really been a company-wide initiative across all of our books business to increase our content coverage in the SDGs in general.
Great. Can you hear me?
Your video froze, but I can still hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. It's just lagging on my side a little bit here. Trying to switch off my camera. So how much would it cost a researcher to publish an ebook? Is there some guidelines you could give on that?
Yes, I can speak to that. Actually, we do not charge anything for authors or editors to publish with us. I realize that is quite different from how journals typically works, especially if you're looking to do an open access journal or something like that, where there are costs that are put upon the author or editor to publish that. But we actually compensate you with royalties and complimentary copies rather than charging you anything for the publication of the book. Elsevier incurs all production costs. So the only time that you would have to pay any type of fee is, as I mentioned, with the permissions. If you wanted to use a certain image that you found online, and then the copyrights coordinator advises you that in order to use the image in the published book, if that might come with a fee from the rights holder, that would just be up to you to say, oh, do I want to pay this fee, or do I want to find an image that I don't have to pay for? There's even the option of working with our Elsevier in-house illustrators to create your own version of it. And they can advise you on how to do that. So yes, in short, we do not charge you to publish with us on the book side.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I've got a few questions coming through here now. I'm just looking at them. All right, give me 1 second. Please, how do we claim? Okay, so that's a question for the certificate. I will repost the link. Or Dinesh, would you mind please posting the link in there again to the resource center? Okay, so then we have a question here. Do you look for proposals on any specific SDGs? I think we mentioned that in the beginning of the presentation, unless you would like to speak a little bit more to that. Is there anything else you'd like to speak to that?
Just to reiterate again that we're looking to enhance multiple SDGs in general. So I know we highlighted 7, 11, and 12 today in these exact, these examples that we showcased today. But we're happy to look at a proposal that supports, SDG 13, which is climate action, or SDG 3, which is good health and well-being. And like I said, there doesn't have to be one specific SDG to focus on, because many of these support each other in various ways. Everything is very multidisciplinary. Research has become very multidisciplinary over time anyways. So, if you decide to submit a proposal and you find that it aligns with SDGs, please do mention that in the proposal form. And it's okay to mention multiple if you think it applies across multiple.
Great. Okay, I have another question for you. Would you be interested in country-specific book or issue-specific? So I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, I think they're talking on a micro and a macro scale here.
We have published geographic specific publications before. Anna, correct me if I'm wrong. It might not be across all of the portfolio areas, subject collections that we have, but we have done it before. And issue specific, I guess it would just depend on the issue. If, we do quite a bit, like we showed in the case studies, we do quite a bit of research to evaluate the proposal to make sure that it's something that aligns with research or with funding, with our journal counterparts. So as long as there's a strong alignment or indication in the data that tells us this is of audience interest, then we pursue it.
Yes, Katie, you are correct. And I would just add to that by saying that for region specific book proposals that we receive, we will, work with you and advise as necessary. We certainly do publish in most portfolios region-specific books. What we do look for is that it doesn't just focus on the region itself, but also has applicability to other regions in the world, or maybe similar regions in climate, biodiversity, or something like that. So we want, because our best-selling books do have some sort of global appeal. So that is just what I recommend if you are to put forth a book proposal on a region-specific topic, make sure that there is some sort of global appeal of how it could be used elsewhere, or even just as an example or a case study for further international use.
Right. When it does come to that, do you find North and South Africa, different SDGs are being researched in greater amounts, or is it kind of a blanket covering, or is it very geographically area specific, the different SDG research and publication?
From my own personal work, mostly with animal science, biodiversity conservation, it does depend on the region and the climate and the various issues being faced in different parts of the entire continent of Africa. So specifically, you're seeing, issues of water, sanitation, availability of certain resources, perhaps in Northern to Central Africa. Southern Africa, you're kind of seeing more of the biodiversity and, some of the infrastructure SDGs that we highlighted before. So from my perspective, I would say it's just it just depends on the certain issues being faced in the various regions. Katie, I don't know if you have a different experience from your portfolio.
Yeah, so I represent the energy side of the business. So of course, the world is kind of all speaking the same language in many places, that it's trying to all transition into cleaner energy, into lowering emissions. And so mine hasn't really been as geographically focused, whether it's in Africa or the US for that matter. It's really all about a focus on lowering emissions, gaining more traction in alternative energy, the very similar topics.
Right. Excellent. I have some other questions here that I think, perhaps if anybody has a direct question that they'd like to ask the speakers, we're going to give you the recording of this presentation, as well as we are giving the actual slides as well, if I'm not mistaken, Anna and Katie.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So all right. So that and the audience can contact you directly. Is that all right?
Yes, certainly. Yes,
Yes,
we encourage
Okay.
to us directly with any further questions.
Okay, great. Because there's some very specific questions on certain types of SDGs. Social media, religion, and so forth. That would be better asked, I think, directly. I have one. Okay, a question's come up here that I'd like to combine with another question I had. So, can I convert my research into an article or into an ebook? And then how long does it take to get published? And what are the royalty schemes for authors and editors? Now that's maybe perhaps a bit loaded, but could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, Katie, do you want to That's a very multi.
Well,
Should
I'll
I say
answer.
break it up? Let me break it up. Let me say, okay, first of all, what are the royalty schemes for authors and editors?
Yeah,
what is
that's the easiest question to answer.
Let's start with the easy one then.
Okay, so if the proposal is accepted within Elsevier, then we discuss an author agreement, signing an author agreement, and that's when we can discuss the royalty scheme. And traditional royalty is 10% on all print and electronic sales. So that is the cut, if you will, that you're receiving from every book, from every print and electronic sale of the book. And then there is also a royalty for translations, and as well as I think other derivatives. I'm trying to remember the exact name in the agreement. Those are if the book decides, another publisher in another country decides to publish it in their language, there's a fee that we would charge that publisher, and you would get a percentage of that fee for having your book translated. But the primary amount of royalty is going to come from the print and electronic royalties.
And just to expand upon that briefly, that the electronic royalties not only include ebook sales, but every time a institution or private organization buys the Science Direct collection that your book would be featured in. So for example, if you were to publish a book with me, your book would be under the Agricultural, Biological, and Food Sciences collection. So every time an institution purchases that collection on an annual basis, you will receive a percentage of royalties because from Science Direct because your book is included in that collection. So the electronic royalties don't just include ebooks, it's across all electronic platforms, including Science Direct.
Fantastic. That's great. Great. And so you've actually published quite a few authors at the University of Johannesburg, haven't you?
We have not specifically in our particular portfolios. We certainly have across other portfolios. For example, the agricultural waste book that we did, that did fall under our agricultural Science Direct collection. Where, the hope of this presentation is that we can certainly collaborate further and expand the publication in the different SDGs, whatever it might be, a combination of them across portfolios. So specifically, for example, my portfolio, I work primarily with on animal science books, biodiversity conservation, insect science, things like that. And I would love to partner further with people, researchers and academics from the University of Johannesburg to get representation of your institution in my portfolio specifically. And I think I can say the same for Katie as well in her portfolio too.
Yeah, in mine within energy, so the example that we gave that was on energy for SDG 7, I think that was through our material science because it had a cross between solar and nanomaterial. It actually sat with our material science editor. So that's the one who actually managed that project. In my area, it's more about energy resources. And like I said, the energy transition is front and center for my program. So anything that involves lowering emissions, anything that involves hybrid systems, energy sources supporting other energy sources. For instance, in the North Sea offshore, there's oil and gas companies that are utilizing wind energy to support their rigs offshore so that they're able to still extract for oil and gas, but they're doing it on a much lower emission rate. Things of that need. That's kind of my area of expertise.
Okay, right. When I was doing my research into SDGs, I must say I did find quite a few authors coming from UJ. I think they would be in a different silo. There would be different acquisition editors.
I think a lot of them were in the engineering in general,
yes,
as well as material science. Yeah, I think that was the focus.
Yes. Exactly. Right. Okay. So we're getting a little bit shorter on time here. I know we've got a hard stop at 4 o'clock because you ladies have other meetings, and I think you're just waking up in America at the moment. But can I ask you? So Ivy has asked a question here. So it's a little bit of a long one. So is it possible to do a thorough mapping of SDG research at UJ throughout which we can identify gaps and get ideas / help or suggestions on how we can move forward? An initiative where we can get a broader sense of how we can make positive contributions to the SDGs through research, teaching, and community engagement. So, Ivy, that is definitely a very good question. I think how would we take something like that on? It would be, I think, quite a few discussions with different levels within the institution.
Yeah, so I know there is a way to tag content by SDG that already exist. And so it would take a little bit of maneuvering, I think, but I'm unsure. I'll be honest, I'm unsure if it would help identify gaps per se, but it would definitely showcase what exists already.
Right. So that's actually then that would be, could we do that from our side? Prepare a type of presentation like that?
We can look into that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because I think what I was asking here is if there's gaps, as an institution, they looking at which direction that they can grow in, what they can focus on. I mean, being number one in the world already for an SDG, as well as number one in South Africa for a number of others, it's just a fantastic result. So I think she's looking at, where are the gaps, as it were. Yeah. Okay, great. So she's saying that's, yeah.
I would actually, I'm just going to go back to this side briefly and just say that this would be actually a good place to start, because you can see where, South Africa itself, maybe not University of Johannesburg specifically, but this could be a really good starting point of seeing what's already being ranked very high in South Africa and perhaps where you're seeing some of the gaps. So like specifically, we did highlight good health and well-being, as well as, affordable and clean energy. So I would recommend maybe starting by taking a look at this slide and seeing what is already popular. For some of these lower counts, what still needs representation, and going from there.
Right. So perhaps, Ivy, I could put something together for you there. We could have a look at your citation count, where you're ranking. I could use some of our internal programs to do that. Okay, and then let's get back to that difficult question. Can a researcher convert their research into an article? And in general, how long would it take for that art or that book or that specific article to be published?
Well, so as I mentioned, I think this is referring specifically, when you say an article, we take that to mean a journal article. So that's differently.
So let's, sorry, then let me rephrase that. If they wanted to write for an ebook, for example, or if they wanted their research to be included in an ebook.
Okay, right, yeah. So an ebook would be through our normal publication process. So again, I'll go back to that, the visual slide here. So depending on how long it takes to put together the book proposal and go through these steps, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving.
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. So depending on how long it takes to work with the acquisitions editor, here from the time you propose the book, go through the necessary review and approval contracting process. Once you get to the actual manuscript development, our timeline is very flexible for how long you want to take to deliver your final manuscript. Most of our books, the manuscript is delivered within 12 to 18 months, 18 kind of being the maximum. Although I will say that during COVID times, we are quite flexible. If there are delays or anything that comes up, we do remain very flexible. We just ask that you keep us, in the know and up to date as possible so we can make preparations from our end. So after about the 12 to 18 months that you spend writing or collaborating with chapter authors to create the manuscript, the production process here, as I mentioned, depending on the length and complexity of your book, will take anywhere from 4 to 7 months before actual publication. So we can shorten that, we can lengthen that. It's really case dependent. So once you submit the book proposal, if you say, oh, I already actually have a bunch of it written, I can deliver, sooner than 12 months. That's great. We can talk to you about that. The only thing I would say that is definite in the, constricted timeline is that 4 to 7 months in production.
Right, so that's the kind of standard. I think we've got one last question. I think it's quite a good one. Is how established should one be as a researcher before considering book publication?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I can tell you that I've published a range of young associate professors. I've also published, professors that have been doing this for 30, 40 years. I tend to think it's not so much about how established you are per se, but especially if you decide to make it an edited work where you bring in multiple contributors, that is if you are, and I guess I'm speaking more if you're on the younger side of the spectrum, if you decide to think about a book, think about as an edited work first maybe, and bring in a variety of contributors that can be diverse in background, they can be diverse in experience. The one case study that we showed where the author Kapil Gupta brought in both industry and academic, that to me is always the best approach to a lot of topics, especially in engineering, where you have this well-balanced view of what's going on in the research market as well as the corporate markets. Those tend to be very well received by customers. Yeah. So if you're on that younger side of the spectrum, maybe think about an edited work first, if you're really serious about it, and try to bring in a diverse group of contributors that can help support your work.
Excellent. Yeah, and there's no shortage of researchers at UJ. So yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I think we are coming up on the hour now. So if you have any further questions, please direct them directly to, or you can send them to me as well, but you can send them to our speakers, Anne and Katie, if there's anything specific you'd like to know. And I think we're also scratching the surface very nicely here on SDGs, and I'd love to, open this up further and in fact, even break it down to very specific individual SDGs going forward that we can really focus in on different areas. But for now, this has been a great overview. So thank you very much for that. And I really hope that there's been a kind of a deeper understanding as a whole on SDGs today, and especially with the users, researchers, and students. So I'd like to thank all of you so much for attending this talk. Thank you to our speakers, and we will make the recording as well as the presentation available to everybody. And Ivy, I will probably touch base with you on that. So everybody, thank you very much, and have a great day further. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.